I said, if you gave me Mahomes, if you gave me Lamar Jackson with his great legs and Mahomes' great arm, or you gave me Baker Mayfield, who would I want? I would want Baker Mayfield, and the reason why is because Baker Mayfield.
I really think that now this is the worst case scenario for the San Francisco 49ers, is that they're going to have to cut ties with Jimmy Garoppolo if I were them.
What?
Oh my God!
Wow!
Man!
In any event, Kyle Gibson is definitely my NL Cy Young Award winner. Rock on, Gibby. And even
No way! Oh my God!
What's up, everyone, and welcome to Sports Weekly. Along with Isaiah Leung, I'm Lauro Antonio. He's the agent Skip Bayless, honestly. I don't mean to be racist on the air. So, anyways, Isaiah, how's it going?
What's good, everybody? It's good to be back here. We haven't done a Sports Weekly show in forever, so I can't wait to get this show on the road. Lauro, it's good to see you, man. We've missed you on Batter Up and the other shows that we've had, so it's good to have you back. But man, what a great start, to these NBA playoffs. Baseball is, in full swing. The NFL draft is just right around the corner. I mean, it's truly a great time to be a sports fan right now. And, these playoffs, if it's an indication, if the last couple of games are an indication of how it's going to be an absolutely insane NBA playoffs. And, I just can't wait to watch these playoffs moving forward. I mean, the first two nights, actually, we've had just amazing games, and all of the games just go down to the wire minus the Miami game. So I cannot wait for these playoffs. If this is a true indication of the rest of the playoffs, we're in for one of the best playoffs we've ever seen.
How's it going, Ben?
I'm doing good. I wish the Red Sox didn't torture me too much already, and it's not even April. I'm not even beginning of April, but outside of that, doing good. I'm excited for the Celtics to begin their playoffs on Saturday against the Hawks. I'm excited for the Bruins to start their NHL playoffs on Monday. Probably be playing the Islanders. And Shohei Ohtani is pitching on Marathon Monday in Boston. So you have Shohei Ohtani in Boston, you have Boston Bruins in Boston on Marathon Monday. So I'll be glad enough to be in Boston this weekend to see James's Angels play the Red Sox. So I have a lot looking forward to this weekend. So I hope you guys are doing well.
Anyways, Ben, we'll talk about Angels, Red Sox in a minute. And anyways, we got to talk about the Lakers yesterday beating the Minnesota Timberwolves in overtime. LeBron James had 30 points. Anthony Davis had 24 to help the Lakers survive in this play-in game yesterday against Minnesota. But the T-Wolves somehow found a way. They won this, but without Gobert and McDaniels, but also the T-Wolves are playing OKC in the play-in game on Friday. So, Isaiah, we talked about it off air. I mean, the Lakers, they made us worry yesterday. I was not really impressed with how we defended, which is my concern heading into the Memphis Grizzlies series. But I'm like, that's got to be cleaned up if we want a chance to make it a series. Because I don't mean to be biased. I want the Lakers to beat Memphis in 7. That way we can have a Lakers-Clippers second round. But will that happen? That remains to be seen. So, anyways, Isaiah, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, I thought they did great. Austin Reeves could have been better. That was not really the best game I've seen him play. I know I have seen Austin Reeves play better games than he did, than before. But I know that he's earned a big role in this Lakers team prior to the play-in game.
Yeah, Loro, I think I got to agree with your sentiment about this game. Yeah, the Lakers win, but this win felt like a loss. It was not impressive whatsoever. I mean, the Lakers should have won this game by at least 20. I mean, the Minnesota Timberwolves were missing their best defender in Jaden McDaniels, who idiotically punched a wall in a meaningless game. And then you were missing Rudy Gobert, who decided to go rogue and punch a teammate because he called him the B word in a meaningless game. So they were without two of their best defenders and one of their superstars in Rudy Gobert. And so you would think that the Lakers going in, being a team that was fully healthy for this game, being a team that was on a roll, one of the best teams in the Western Conference since the trade deadline, you would think that the Lakers would come in and just steamroll the Minnesota Timberwolves, but it just absolutely didn't happen. And I thought the Lakers looked lackadaisical. I thought that the Lakers looked like that they overlooked the Minnesota Timberwolves. I mean, they were making really sloppy passes. They were very careless with the ball, turning the ball over, especially late with some of those turnovers. Like LeBron, you can't even get an inbounds pass right. You can't get an inbounds pass right. You throw it away, and the Wolves nearly tie the game up by hitting a three. I just think that it was a very disappointing game from the Lakers, and it was a very concerning game because you would think a team that has championship aspirations would turn it on and when it comes to postseason time, because postseason, is big time basketball and they just wouldn't overlook an opponent. But the Lakers unfortunately just overlooked the Timberwolves. And I know they won, but you cannot play like this if you want to beat Memphis. Like, I know Memphis lost Brandon Clark, they lost Steven Adams for the season. That's a huge blow. And me and Laurel were talking about this off air, how big of a blow that is for Memphis. But if you play like the way you did against Minnesota last night against Memphis, you're going to lose by 20. And the Lakers, they got to get their act together. As far as this game, LeBron stepped it up down the stretch. I'll give him credit. AD, he stepped it up, especially after Karl Anthony Towns got into foul trouble. I think after Towns picked up his fifth foul, he started being more aggressive, trying to get Towns to foul out of the game. But I was very disappointed by D'Angelo Russell, Malik Beasley, and Jared Vanderbilt. Those guys were coming in to the game chirping, saying like, oh, we want revenge. We're pissed off that the Minnesota Timberwolves traded us. And D'Angelo Russell had 2 points and only 4 assists. And he was benched for majority of the fourth quarter and overtime. And then Malik Beasley only had 5 points. Jared Vanderbilt had 0. All three of them combined for 7 points, despite talking all that trash about how they wanted revenge on the Wolves. And they end up, going really small and only combining for 7 points. Those guys got to step up. The Lakers got them for a reason. They got them for the postseason, and they got to step up. You can't have 2 points from D'Angelo Russell. You can't have only 5 points from the sniper that is Malik Beasley. I know Jared Vanderbilt was tremendous defensively, but he's got to add some points as well for the Lakers if they want to win. And I don't understand why Darvin Ham, and I know Ben has raised concerns about Darvin Ham in the past. Karl Anthony Towns was killing the Lakers all night long against Anthony Davis. Why did you not put Mo Bamba or Tristan Thompson out there to counter the size? Like, that's the one thing I don't understand. Like, why would you put Wenyen Gabriel on him when Gobert or when Towns was just annihilating Gabriel all night long with his size and his height, and you don't make an adjustment? That was the one thing that really worried me in this game. And then you put AD back, and then Towns was giving AD fits, and he was getting AD in foul trouble. So you just put you put Towns on Reeves, you put Towns on LeBron, you put Towns on Vanderbilt the entire game, and Towns on Rui as well. But that was the one thing that really perplexed me, was the defensive adjustments by Darvin Ham. And it's, it makes me wonder why Karl Anthony Towns didn't do more to take advantage of his matchup, because if you watch the fourth quarter and overtime, he was going up against Austin Reeves the entire time. He should have just said, like, hey, give me the ball. I'm going up against a guy that's smaller than me. Give me the ball and let me work. But he decided to just take jump shot after jump shot after jump shot. And, if you're a Wolves fan, you should be pissed off at Towns for that, because you have an undersized Austin Reeves going up against you. You should be taking full advantage of the matchup, but he didn't, thankfully, and that's one of the reasons the Lakers won. But the Lakers got to play better. This was a disappointing start to the playoffs for the Lakers. It's a blessing that they actually made the playoffs against Memphis, and it'll be a fun series, the next couple of weeks, but they got to play better. This was a very disappointing showing, and, guys like D'Angelo Russell, guys like, Malik Beasley, they got to step up and they got to play bigger than they did last night, or else the Lakers will absolutely get killed by the Memphis Grizzlies. But just, good, great win, but it's a win that felt like a loss.
I agree, 100%. I just think that there's a lot of things that need to be corrected come Sunday. Ben, what was your thoughts on last night's Lakers and T-Wolves play-in game?
Yeah. First of all, guys, congratulations to getting that one last night. But I'll say this, and I will try to be as respectful as I can possibly without two Laker fans on here, but I'm going to be realistic as well. Those last 5 minutes in the fourth quarter might have been some of the worst basketball I've seen from both sides, by the T-Wolves side and by the Lakers side. I mean, it was just – you look at the playing games, even the games tonight, OKC, Pelicans going back and forth. And I didn't really watch much of the Bulls Raptor game because I was working. But when I got home, I saw the end of that even. That game was going back and forth. This game down the stretch, it was just brick. It was turning the ball over. It was just complaints. And it was just completely – not the way you want to finish off a basketball game. And I think specifically the boneheaded mistake by Anthony Davis on the three. Dude, it was like 0.2, 0.5 seconds. Why are you even trying to have your hand up? It would have taken, the guy makes the shot, give credit where credit's due. But, you almost lost your game for your team, and you were lucky that, the Lakers, the Wolves were just even that worse. Anthony Edwards is their second best player as a star, and he did not show up by any means in this game. I think if Anthony Edwards came to play, I think that the Wolves probably would have had a decent chance to win this game, because you look at what Towns did, you look at what Taurean Prince did. The Lakers defense could not stop the three. And I think, you look at a team like Memphis, that's not going to be good, because Dylan Brooks, Ja can't really shoot the three, but the thing about Memphis is they can beat you in many ways. And I think personally the Grizzlies have a little bit more star power than the Lakers do. The Lakers have LeBron and AD. I get it. They have two of the best players in basketball. But you can have those two players to essentially carry you like potentially in years past. There's just the teams in the West. You have like the Nuggets. You have like even the Warriors. They're the champs for a reason. I saw that firsthand last year in the finals. So that last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter was just some of the it was just really hard basketball to watch. I know Mike Conley hit some big free throws at the end, and he played a big role. But the Wolves, after that first half, I said, they're gonna find a way to fuck this up, because I didn't really know how consistent they'd be. They're a really young team, and Edwards wasn't playing great, so I knew for myself that if LeBron just turned it up, I thought that the Lakers pretty much would have it. And even that, with that being said, Towns in foul trouble. Lakers took advantage of that. But in reality, Edwards did not show up, and he was a big factor into why they didn't play great, as well as some boneheaded turnover and mistakes. LeBron turnover, the inbound pass. I don't know what he was doing. So it was just an absolute sloppy game. It's probably the most sloppy game of the play-in tournament so far, and you guys are very lucky. I don't look at this game and say the Lakers definitely deserve that game. I just think it was the incompetence of how the Wolves are playing as well. But you guys obviously won the game. You take it. So obviously, ugly wins are better than pretty losses. So it is what it is. and we'll see how you guys play against Memphis. It's going to be a really good series. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, this was definitely really tough basketball to watch the last 5 minutes to the fourth quarter.
Anyways, guys, with that being said here now, Isaiah, I mean, I didn't watch the Thunder Pelicans game. Before I give my thoughts, Isaiah and Ben, you guys can talk about it.
I'll go first. This was actually a great game. Absolutely great game. And I'll kick in with Cruz Isaiah, Loro. This was actually, we were previewing some of the playing games. This was the game I was looking forward to the absolute most. Two really good young teams that I think are going to be great future teams for years to come. I mean, you look at OKC's team with SGA and Josh Giddey, even some of the Williams kids, I believe. And then you look at the Pelicans. I know that Zion hasn't been there, but I look at what the Pelicans have been doing all year. Zion's essentially hasn't been playing all year. So TJ McCollum and Brandon Ingram. I mean, Brandon Ingram, I think is one of the most underrated superstars in the game. You look at what the guy can do. If he can develop a three-point shot consistently, I mean, this guy is for sure a top 15 player, top 20 player at max in the game of basketball. There's just so many other great stars, but you kind of look at, for instance, it was Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. On the only game, the playing game, so everybody's watching, NBA fans are watching. And I think you start to appreciate what SGA can really do with this OKC team. They're a young, great team. I don't think they're finals by any means or whatever, but you look at their direction and look at how far they have grown as a team in their youth. And I think that, you look at this team for the next years and years to come, they'll just keep on getting better and better and better. And I think that both of these teams are pretty evenly well matched. It just sucked that one team had to come up short. You look at what Brandon Ingram had, that three at the end. The Pelicans were fighting back, going back and forth, back and forth. And they just ran out a little bit of gas. You look at McCollum. I thought that he did okay. It will be fascinating to see OKC against Minnesota. I think OKC is going to probably win that game. I really do. Just personally, I know we're not going to preview anything right now, but I think that if you look at both teams, they even were interviewing SG after the game today, and they were asking him about overcoming adversity. He said, well, we may not have all the superstars and stuff like that, but we handle business, and we're right there within. And that's a team. That's essentially a mindset that you should have as a team. You don't always have to have the big enough stars. It's always the competitiveness and the championship mindset enough to finish and win games. So this was a really good game, probably my favorite playing game of the playoffs so far. I mean, we'll see about the games Friday, but that was a great game. And congrats to OKC. That was one of my matchups. I had OKC winning this game, and I had them for a reason. And SGA was a big reason why, and it came up big when it mattered most.
Anyways, Isaiah, what was your thoughts on that game here between OKC and the Pelicans?
My thoughts on it is that heart and soul matters. And kudos to the Thunder. They have been playing great basketball all season long. Josh Giddey is an absolute stud. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he's a superstar. Lou Dort is very underrated. He stepped up big in this game, and I think we can start coining that phrase, playoff Lou Dort, because that is a thing now. I mean, this guy, he might not play good in the regular season, but he comes up big every time he's in the postseason. And you saw it, the last time the Thunder were in it, and you saw it tonight with 27 points. I mean, he was a baller tonight. And then you look for some of the the guys that don't really show up on the stat sheet as big time contributors, but they were big time contributors, and that was Jalen Williams. I mean, that guy had 11 points, but he had like 4 clutch points down the stretch and 3 just clutch rebounds down the stretch to help the Thunder, not only regain the lead after they blew it, but also help them, ice this game. So he was clutch tonight. Isaiah Joe was great. Dario Saric was great. Aaron Wiggins was great off the bench. The Pelicans were tremendous as well. Jonas Valanciunas, he was terrific. He was getting every offensive board out there. He had 18 rebounds, 16 points, including a huge 3 late in that game. Brandon Ingram was terrific, like Ben mentioned, with 30 points. Trey Murphy was great with 21. Herb Jones was very underrated. He had 20 points tonight. It was just a great back and forth battle between these two teams. And I think if this was like a 7-game series between these two teams, this would go 7 and every game would come down to the wire. That's how insane and entertaining this game was. For the Pelicans, they blew it. They blew it down the stretch. They had a chance with, I think they were down by 3 after Ingram hit that 3, that miraculous 3. And then SGA steps up to the line and hits 2 clutch free throws. And they had the ball with about 2 seconds left. It would have taken a miraculous 3, miraculous, heave at the buzzer to tie the game. But Herb Jones threw it. He threw it, way too high and, way too out of the reach of CJ McCollum, and who was open, by the way, on that play. He threw it way too high and way out of the reach of him, and he threw it out of bounds, and that was basically the game for the Thunder. So it comes, the playoffs come down to these type of, 1 play, 2 plays, and, if you make it, you move on. If you don't, then, your season's over, and that's what happened in this game. The Pelicans, they had the opportunity, but it was missed shots and just bad turnovers down the stretch that really cost them this game. But overall, a great game. I'm looking forward to the Thunder and the Wolves playing game on Friday, because me and my guy Stephen Wang have had this debate over, whether talent is more important or whether heart and soul are more important, and it's going to get decided on Friday night. But just a great game in general. The Thunder, Ben and Laura, I'll tell you guys this about the Thunder. The Thunder are going to be a team that will wreak havoc on the rest of the NBA for years and years to come. Because not only do they have this young core right now that is balling and getting meaningful playoff experience, but also they got 15 first-round picks in the next 6 years. Like, that's how crazy their stash of first-round picks is. And I was telling my guy James Gonzalez off the air this before the game or during the game that if I'm OKC, what I would do is I got 15 first-round picks in the next 6 years. I would trade 5 or 6 of those for Luka Doncic because if you can get Luka, not only would you get Luka, a generational player to pair with Chet Holmgren, SGA, Josh Giddey to form one of the most formidable young big fours we've seen in the NBA, but you get Luka, and also you would keep at least still 9 of your first round picks that you would have for the next 6 years. So if I'm the Thunder, I would do it just because, look, this team is built to win now and in the future. And also, if you get Luka, you'll have a long window, and also you will still have your pick. So I think the Thunder should absolutely explore it if Luka does become available via trade this offseason, because they can get good and they can get scary good in a heartbeat.
Another thing too, I also wouldn't be opposed to see that OKC makes a run at Damian Lillard, because I think Damian Lillard is going to start to look at some other options outside of Portland. And I think that it's a star type driven league with a lot of these NBA type players that they kind of feed off of other really good situations. And OKC is in a very good situation right now that if you see a guy like SGA that's starting to blossom and become this big time star, then it'll start to attract other guys. Be like, oh, I'll play with this guy. I'll start to think about playing with this guy. So I don't think it would probably happen, but I obviously, never say never either.
So anyways, with that being said here now, guys here, talk about Zach LaVine scoring 36 points, DeMar DeRozan adding 23 to help the Bulls come from behind to beat the Toronto Raptors 109-105 to move on to that winner-take-all play-in game versus the Miami Heat on Friday night. You know what? The Bulls, everybody was doubting them. They might prove me wrong. I'm optimistic that Chicago's gonna beat Miami come Friday, and I really think that the Bulls will play Milwaukee in the first round. I kind of want that matchup. Miami is taking a bit of a step back, and I think that Jimmy Butler is just not the Jimmy Butler that we all know and love. So, Isaiah, what was your thoughts on that game?
My thoughts on this game is what I told Ben and James on Kicking It with Cruz, and that is watch out for the Bulls. I think come postseason time, the Chicago Bulls are going to be a pesky matchup for someone because they're made for the playoffs. You know, they play that physical, half court style of basketball that thrives in the playoffs with the mid range game of DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine that wins you games in the playoffs. And I think that, you know, for the Bulls, their mindset all year have been just get into the playoffs, because if we get into the playoffs, no matter how bad we are in the regular season, our offense and our defense and our style of play it transfers more into the postseason. So the Bulls are a scary team, and you know, if I'm a team that, you know, like the Heat or the Bucks potentially that will play the Bulls, if they beat the Heat, you know, I don't want to play the Bulls just because they have the talent, and they're built for the postseason with LaVine and DeMar DeRozan. And you know, I think about this game in general, I think that you could see it. Nick Nurse had 1 foot out the door. I mean, you blow a 19-point lead in the second quarter of that game. I know a lot of it had to do with the missed free throws. I think the Raptors missed like 50% of their free throws. They were like 18 to 36. Like, that's how you lose playoff games. Like, you miss 18 free throws, and that's how it ends up costing you. I know that DeMar DeRozan's daughter was out there shrieking throughout the entire game. I mean, I was watching the game and I had to like mute the TV because I like what she was doing, but it was just annoying as heck on TV. But that's how you lose playoff games. You lose playoff games by turning the ball over and missing free throws, and that's what the Raptors did down the stretch. And it was a thing that the Raptors, it reared its ugly head. You know, the Raptors have been doing this all season, turning the ball over, missing free throws, being inconsistent, you know, starting off hot and then being cold late in the games or late in the season. That's how it's been all season for the Raptors. And I think for the Toronto Raptors, they've reached their ceiling with this core of Fred VanVleet, you know, Siakam, OG Anunoby. It's time for a change, and I wouldn't be shocked if the Raptors decide to tear it down, because I just feel like that's where it's headed now. You know, you've heard the rumors with Nick Nurse in Houston. We'll talk about this, like, I think on our next topic, but I think that the Nick Nurse era officially ended tonight in Toronto, and I expect the Raptors to be looking for a new coach in the next couple of weeks. And for the Bulls, they're a scary, scary team to watch. And any team that needs to play the Bulls in the postseason, Miami, Milwaukee, watch out, because this Bulls team, they're made for the postseason. And Zach LaVine showed why they gave him that type of contract, because he's a big time player in the postseason.
Anyways, Ben, what was your thoughts on the Bulls and Raptors game?
Yeah, I mean, you look at this game, and there's one person I think on the Bulls that I think's really kind of gotten them back to where they want to be defensively, and that's one guy, that's Patrick Beverley. I know Patrick Beverley is not the greatest overall type player, but what he can do is he brings toughness and he brings defensive toughness. And that's something I think the Bulls really struggled before they got him was, you know, defensively, I thought that they were just very lackadaisical. They didn't really have a lot going for them. But, you know, if you're the Raptors, you're up by 20 plus points, and really kind of in this modern day NBA, 20-point leads, you know, aren't safe really leads at this point in time anymore. You look at what the Raptors have with the free throws, I get it, but you know, I think specifically for the Bulls, Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan keep doing their thing. They got to be consistent. If they can be consistent, they give that team a chance to win day in and day out. I know that a lot of Bulls fans are giving criticisms about their coach Billy Donovan, but Billy Donovan down the stretch in this game, I thought did a lot of good things. So you know, got to give credit. I don't think the Bulls beat the Heat, but I would not be opposed to it either, because you look at the Hawks. I didn't think the Hawks would go into Miami and beat them. I wasn't really impressed with the way that he played against the Hawks the other night. So I would not be shocked if the Bulls did the exact same thing to what Miami did. But it seems like if the Bulls beat Miami, the Bucks really have the Bulls' number. So I doubt that if the Bulls moved on, they beat the Bucks. But I agree with Isaiah that I think that this team could be a very scary matchup for any team, because They play with a certain amount of style, and I think that if they play the right way, they could give a couple teams a run for their money. I don't think that they're going to go finals bound by any means or something like that, but they could be a pesky team for somebody to try to handle. So, in terms of the Raptors, I agree. I thought that this past year's trade deadline, I thought they would be one of the biggest selling type teams, but they found a way to kind of adjust their season. Kind of get it back on track. They looked like they were one of the worst teams in basketball in the first half, and they really started to pick things up as time went on. So obviously, I guess what I said was, an old take, but I think my take now kind of goes back to where it stands in the past is that Nick Nurse, I think, is all set but done there. You even looked at it when I saw them play the Celtics in the last couple of games of the regular season. It just doesn't seem like, they're already on the same page. Ever since Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan moved on from the Raptors, the whole type of big era there, I think, is starting to move forward. They have guys like Scotty Barnes and stuff like that, but I think Fred VanVleet probably could be on his way out. I know that he signed with Clutch Sports. Pascal Siakam probably could be, potentially in trade talks, and OG Anunoby. So, if I'm the Raptors specifically, I'd try to see if you can rebuild, try to get some high picks, and kind of go from there. Because I think if Nurse is moving on, you might as well just tear it up and kind of go back to square one. So, if in terms of the Bulls, big win, big comeback win, and we'll see how they can do against Miami on Friday.
I'm going to say here that it remains to be seen for me if Nick Nurse is done in Toronto. But if he is, he's going to be a hot name for whoever is looking for a new head coach. But Isaiah already said it, and Ben already said it, so we'll talk about Trae Young and the Hawks flying into Miami and steamrolling Jimmy Butler in the Heat. You know what? I think the Hawks are they're a pesky team. I think they're playing good at the right time, and you know what? I think they could challenge Boston in this 7-game series come first round time. Isaiah, what's your thoughts on that game?
I'm not gonna lie, I was very disappointed about the Heat's performance. The Heat made me, look like an absolute idiot for some of my takes that I was saying to Ben and James the other day, where I was saying, Boston does not want to play Miami because Miami's going to give Boston a run for their money. And I think I picked Miami to beat Boston in a 7-game series, but the Heat looked washed. They looked old. I mean, Jimmy Butler was nonstop getting his shots blocked all night long. He looked like he didn't have any lift in his legs. Kyle Lowry was terrific in this game. But other than that, that was about it. I mean, Tyler Hero shrunk big time in this game. Bam Adebayo, he was nowhere to be found in this game. It was just a very, very disappointing performance by the Miami Heat. And, this is what I feared. I feared that if the Hawks got into a shootout with the Heat and they were shooting the ball extremely well, then Miami was going to lose because Miami was not going to be able to beat the Hawks in a shootout because they're a team that likes to play slow, play methodical, be a team that, does their damage, with physicality and, just running a half-court set style of offense, while the Hawks like to play a running gun style of play. But this game came down to rebounding, and it came to offensive rebounds. It looked like the Heat wasn't even trying on the glass the entire night. The Heat were getting out-rebounded all night long. Whenever the Hawks missed a shot, it looked like Capella was coming down with the offensive board and passing it out to either Trae Young or DeJounte Murray or Sadiq Bey or Bogdanovich for open looks. The Heat just looked very discombobulated. They looked like they didn't care. They looked like they were washed, and it was a very disappointing performance. And now when you think about the Bulls, how are they going to play against the Bulls and how are they going to challenge the Bulls if they don't have – if Bam Adebayo couldn't even stand up against Clint Capella? I mean, the Bulls have their own amazing big man in Nikola Vucevic, who was terrific tonight. And if Bam plays the way he did last night on Friday – you could just, the Heat could just pack their bags and call it a wrap because they're going to get steamrolled by the Chicago Bulls. So they got to play better. And Jimmy Butler, I don't know what's up with him recently, but he just hasn't looked like himself. recently. I know he was, he had 21 points, but he labored for that 21 points. I mean, he was just getting his shots blocked. He was, very confused by the defense the Hawks were throwing at him the entire game. It was just not a prototype Jimmy Butler game that you expect from Jimmy Butler. That's why I was very disappointed by the Miami Heat's performance. As far as the Hawks are concerned, the Hawks look like they are pressing the right buttons at the right time. DeJounte Murray looked great. Trae Young looked great. Sadiq Bey looked great. Bogdanovich looked terrific. Clint Capella came on strong with 21 rebounds. The Hawks, if they can play the way they did against Miami, against Boston, then I think they can give the Celtics a sneaky good competitive series.
And what about you, Ben? What was your thoughts on the Hawks and Heat game? Trae Young and the Hawks played great, but Jimmy Butler was steamrolled.
I'll say this, and I could see it at first glance about Miami playing them last year in the playoffs. They rely a lot on Jimmy Butler. When Jimmy Butler is very ice cold, they really struggle. I mean, Bam Adebayo is a decent offensive player, but I think specifically he's a little limited, as I think more people think. And I think that, nothing to take away from Kyle Lowry, because he's been a great player for a long period of time in Toronto. But when you have a big chunky, I don't want to say Kyle Lowry's a big ass chunky guy, but when you have a guy, Kyle Lowry, that essentially Heat fans have been ripping left and right in terms of getting out of here, stuff like that, and he scores you essentially all your points, then I don't think you're going to be your night. I just really don't. I mean, Hero had 26, but the Hawks like to play a certain style, like you said, Isaiah, and I think with the Heat, they remind me of the college basketball version of the Virginia Cavaliers. They want to play on your own terms. Defensively, they'll obviously have their moments. But I think specifically for the Hawks, they were the better team. They shot the lights out of the ball. And I think specifically, at least for the Heat, I'm a little surprised that they didn't expose more of Trae Young's weakness, and that's his defense. I mean, I think that, the thing about Miami was they weren't essentially, they got to some runs here and there, but every single time the Hawks fought back. And I think that another thing too, keep in mind, the Hawks moved on from Nate McMillan, and that was a ballsy move from them. And they brought in Quinn Snyder. And I think that for Quinn Snyder, he's been a big pickup for them in terms of a lot of in-game situations and stuff like that. And it was really big too that, there was reports the other day of Trae Young being very frustrated with the ownership of the Hawks, and it doesn't seem like he skipped a beat. So I don't know exactly what's going on there, but I think they felt also disrespected too. You saw that all the guys picking the Heat, everybody's saying Heat, and then you're seeing Trae Young and DeJounte Murray put it on Twitter. Everybody's picking against us and stuff like that. People see it. Anytime with bulletin material, you just never know. So I give credit for what Atlanta was doing. They were going in with pretty much nothing to lose, and I agree. The Heat, they play the way that they're playing. I think they're really good with the backs against the wall. I would still want to rule out Jimmy to have a bounce back type game, and I think that's why I had them beating Chicago. But they play like this. On Friday they're going to be going home too. In terms of the Hawks against us so far, I know we'll probably get more into it on my show probably next week, and maybe I don't know if we'll get into at least more tonight. I really like this matchup for us, and I'm not saying it just in a really cocky good way, but I think that. If we play Miami plays a really tough zone, and they play a really tough hard-nosed, defensively. So I think it's going to be more of a grinded type series. The thing about the Hawks is I think that they could potentially steal 2 games at best, but I think offensively we're a much deeper team at best, more consistent, and so I think we have them in 6 games. I think that's a very overall fair series. I think that we probably at least split the home series, and then probably split maybe it would be kind of like 2-2, and I think that we'd probably win 1 and so make it 2-2 and then probably win game 6. That's kind of the way it probably goes. So I mean, they'll probably give us a series, but I think that they've rely too much on Trae Young to absolutely ball. I just think it's very hard against a deep team like us.
Anyways, guys, with that being said, here talk about picks between the Bulls and the Heat here. For me, I'm going to pick the Chicago Bulls to beat the Miami Heat. I know Jimmy Butler has had history playing with the Bulls. I think the Bulls and Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan come into Miami and they beat the heck out of them. What about you, Isaiah?
I'm gonna go with the Bulls. I didn't like the way that Jimmy Butler looked in that game against the Hawks. He looked washed. He looked old. He looked like he couldn't get his feet up to shoot the ball. I just think that for the Miami Heat, I think I forgot who was it that said this today earlier on a show. It was Chris Mad Dog Russo. He said that if Miami loses in the play-in and they get bounced and they get eliminated, there is a chance that Eric Spoelstra could be let go. And when I thought about what he said, at first I thought he was crazy, but when I thought about it even more, he might be right. And it's not that Eric Spoelstra is a bad coach; it's that comes a time when you've been there a long time. You've been there for like 10, 15 years where you've just reached your ceiling. You've done all you can. You've done a lot of great stuff, but you just done all you can and you've reached your ceiling and there's no more way to go. And I just think that for the Miami Heat, this might be what this is for Eric Spoelstra and the Heat, where they've just reached their ceiling with this core of Butler, Hero, Adebayo, and those guys, where they just can't go anymore they just can't go up anymore. And I think that they need a new voice. Eric Spoelstra's been there a long time. He's been there like 15 years, I believe. This might be like a Mark Jackson Warriors situation where, it comes a point where the voice just runs out, and having a new voice is good to be able to refresh, reset, and then you can elevate yourself. So I'm gonna go with the Bulls. I think Chicago is playing good basketball at the right time. I think Zach LaVine, I think DeMar DeRozan's gonna have a great time against the Miami Heat's defense. And I think Vucevic is going to have a big game because Bam Adebayo in the big moments thus far, he has not shined. He has unfortunately underperformed. And, if he keeps playing the way he did, it is not going to be pretty for the Miami Heat. So I'm going to go with the Bulls. I just think the Bulls are playing better. They're playing more of a collective basketball right now, and LaVine and DeMar DeRozan, they're playing outstanding basketball right now at the time when it matters the most.
And what about you, Ben? Who do you like between the Bulls and the Heat here in this play-in game?
I'm going to go Miami. I know that they obviously struggle, but I've known a team in Miami for years in the last couple of years. Eric Spoelstra, I think, will get those guys ready. I think it's going to be really hard for Miami to play 2 straight home games and to not show up for another one. I obviously could be wrong. I think that the Bulls had a big comeback win. So, I'm not saying strictly, really confident the Heat are going to win. Absolutely not. Because with the way that they played the other day, they play the same way, they're going to get bounced. And the Bulls have a lot of great talent on that side as well, too. I think it's going to be a close game. And I think that Jimmy is going to come up big in this one. I think that he's going to come up big and he might have his big moment. And I think specifically, he's going to take it to the Bulls. I think it's going to be a back and forth battle between him and LaVine, and it's going to come down to the final minute. And I think that, Bam's going to have some big plays. I think that Bam is probably going to do a little bit better against Vucevic than probably against Capella specifically. I don't think Vucevic is the same guy he once was. And then I think that between Donovan and Spoelstra, I like the matchup with Spoelstra as well. So I'm just looking at specific, big matchups here. And I think that the Bulls can give them a run, but I think that Miami's going to be playing Milwaukee. And you know what? I would love that matchup as a Celtics fan because, Miami pushes Milwaukee to like 6-7 games and we decide to beat the Hawks. I think that would be awesome. So obviously time will tell about what happens there. But I think that Miami is going to beat the Bulls. But I think it's going to be a great game.
Anyways, here, out of all the first round series, which will be the most entertaining and thrilling series, which I think the most entertaining and thrilling series will be, for me, I'm going to say Kings and Warriors, the Battle of the Bay, because Mike Brown versus Steve Kerr, I think that's going to be a great matchup. I think Mike Brown has done a phenomenal job in his first year as the Sacramento Kings head coach. A lot of people thought that the Sacramento Kings are still the laughingstock of the NBA. But you know what? I give a lot of prop to Vivek Radadive, the owner, for playing a big part in this turnaround, along with Monty McNair, the general manager, who's done a great job constructing that roster with Mike Brown. And you know what? The future is bright in Sacramento. I'm excited about this matchup, but I'm going to give you guys a hot take here who I like in this series between the Kings and the Warriors. I'm picking the Sacramento Kings to beat the defending champs in 7 games, and Sacramento will have a playoff series win, and they will move on. So the defending champs are gone in the first round. That's one of my hot. That's my hot take. That's my hot take for the night.
Wow.
What about you, Isaiah?
And I just thought Isaiah had the hot takes.
Yeah, I know, but wow. You know,
see if you can top it.
I'm looking at all these potential matchups that we've got that are set so far. It's really hard because, like I was telling Ben on Sunday, I think this is going to be the most insane playoffs that we've seen in the last 5 years. With all the matchups, a lot of craziness is going to happen, a lot of great storylines for each of the matchups. If I had to pick the matchup that I think will be the most thrilling and entertaining, I'm going to go 2, actually. I got the Knicks and the Cavaliers. I think that series is going to go 7 games. I think each of the games will be down to the wire ball games between the Knicks and the Cavaliers. And I'm looking forward as heck to watching that one. Lakers, Grizzlies, obviously, not because I'm a Lakers fan, but because I think that the Lakers match up with the Grizzlies well. And also, I want to see that beef. You know, last time these two teams played, you had Shannon Sharp going up against Dylan Brooks, those two were yelling at each other. And then Steven Adams got involved, and then John Morant's father, T. Morant, got involved. There was a whole, shoving match as they went for halftime. So, oh my God, you think it's spicy now? Think about it when it goes to Memphis and when it goes to LA. I hope Shannon Sharp shows up for all the games in Los Angeles and maybe flies in for courtside seats in Memphis, because imagine the reception that Shannon Sharp will get when he's in Memphis for that series. Oh my God, he might get popcorn thrown at him, but it's going to be a fun series. I'm looking forward to that one. But the series that, I think that not a lot of people are talking about, and I hope that they don't, get this matchup for their sake, is Nuggets and Thunder. I think Oklahoma City could potentially pull the upset in a 1-8 series against Denver, because Denver is a team that likes to play a little bit slow. You have Jokic there. Jamal Murray hasn't looked like himself after he came back from the ACL injury. Michael Porter Jr., you don't know what you're going to get from him. And OKC is going to be playing with nothing to lose. They'll be playing freely. They'll be playing, fast. They'll be, spread the ball out, move the basketball. They're like a young Golden State Warriors team. And we know how the Warriors give Denver fits every time they play. So if Denver plays OKC, I would not be shocked if OKC pulls the upset. I think that this Thunder team, they're primed to be able to beat the Nuggets in a 7-game series.
Oh, you're absolutely right here. So anyways, Ben, did you talk about out of the first round series, which one will be entertaining and thrilling?
I'm not. I like the Knicks Cavs series a lot. I think that's going to be the most closest back and forth series, potentially the whole entire playoffs, at least the first round. Golden State and the Kings. Laura, obviously, I respect your hot take for sure. I just can't bet against Steph and Clay in the playoffs, at least early on. I think the Kings they've had a great fun story, but I think it's going to be a tall task. But for me, it's going to be Clippers Suns. I think that I know that Paul George is probably going to be out, but I think you look at Kawhi against Durant and Booker and stuff like that. I'll be curious to see how. I know Phoenix got absolutely blasted, and I know that last postseason, a lot of people were like, "Oh well, the Suns were going to go deep and stuff like that. And, it was one game and they got obviously blasted. So, but I'm curious to see how they can do in a 7-game potential series with the Clippers. And, we'll see about who wins that series specifically. I think that's going to be a really fascinating series for sure.
Anyways, now that being said here, we talk about longtime Pistons head coach Dwane Casey announced that this past Sunday he is stepping down as the Pistons head coach. He's going to move to a front office role. And then Steven Silas has been dismissed, which departure is more shocking to me between Steven Silas or Dwane Casey. I would say Steven Silas. I really, really think, guys, that Steven Silas was the guy that I felt like that was going to turn around the Houston Rockets slowly. But the bottom line is the Rockets are not good. They're now on the drawing board for a new head coach. Dwane Casey, he had a great run as a head coach. But now I think that this is a good transition role for him. That way he can pass it over to whoever the Detroit Pistons pick as their next head coach. And I'm sure that the Pistons are going to be ready to contend again. Whoever their new head coach is, I don't know who that is. For the Rockets, who I'd like to see the Houston Rockets get, Isaiah, I would say former Lakers head coach Frank Vogel, because I feel like that him working with Jaylen Brown and that young core of the Houston Rockets, they can get back to playing winning basketball in Houston. But MI6 was like, Juwan Howard to Detroit. I'm like, I don't think he's going to leave Michigan, man. But you know what? That is a possibility. But I would rather go with experience than youth. That's why I'm thinking about which head coach. But you know what? Who I predict who should be the new head coach of the Detroit Pistons? I'd go Nate McMillan. Nate McMillan would get a reset there. I didn't think he meshed well in Atlanta. But you know what? Nate McMillan would make the Detroit Pistons a solid team that can contend. And I think that the Pistons could really use his veteran voice in that locker room. And I have Frank Vogel being the next head coach of the Houston Rockets. So, Isaiah, I'll go to you. Which was more shocking?
I think for me it's Casey. I think because we had been hearing for weeks that Steven Silas was on his way out of Houston. And the players didn't respect him. He, was clashing with their general manager Raphael Stone. So I wasn't surprised that he got let go. I think it was a matter of time until he was going to get let go. I just think he was put into a very, very bad situation in Houston where he was not going to win at all. It reminds me of Bo Porter. You guys remember Bo Porter when he took over the Astros and they were just garbage and they were tanking every year, and then he got fired, I think 3 years later, for AJ Hinch. It reminds me of this. He was never going to – Steven Silas was never going to get the opportunity to succeed. I think that once they became good, they were going to move on to a proven head coach that had experience winning, and that's what they did. So I got to say Casey. I didn't expect Casey was going to step down just because I thought that, Detroit fans didn't really like him because he didn't really fit their timeline. But I thought that, he was the best that they could get. And I think that with Casey, he's been, he's led Toronto to playoffs. He was with Detroit when they made it to the playoffs with Blake Griffin and I believe Andre Drummond. So I thought that with Detroit that they would just let him see it through just because he's got that experience. But I guess Casey just decided, I've had it with coaching. It's been a long time, and I'm going to move to the front office. So I'll say it's Casey. I was more surprised that Casey decided, I'm out as the head coach. I'm going to move to the front office instead. And as far as where the next coaches for both of these two teams, let me say this. If Nick Nurse does get let go by the Raptors, I know there's rumors connecting him to Houston and all that, but if he does get let go, the Lakers better fire Darvin Ham. I don't care where they, land in the postseason. They better fire Darvin Ham and get Nick Nurse, because Nick Nurse is a championship coach, and he's a guy that is one of the top coaches in the NBA. And if he's available, you better say bye to Darvin and go get Nick Nurse. Like, that's the guy that can elevate you to championship level contender if you get bounced early in the playoffs. But for the Rockets, I don't see Nick Nurse, just because if you're Nick Nurse, why would you go leave a team that is on the cusp of a rebuild to go to a team that is rebuilding? It makes no sense whatsoever. I think Nick Nurse sits out the year. And for the Rockets, I would go after a Mark Jackson. I would go after a Juwan Howard because I think Juwan Howard relates better to these kids because they're fresh out of college, and Juwan Howard's a college coach, and he played in Houston as well, so that makes a lot of sense. Here's a wild idea for you guys.
Are you talking about Juwan Howard as the Rockets head coach?
Yes. I think Juwan Howard would be good as the Rockets head coach. But I'm going to throw an idea that I don't think anybody has thrown out there that I think would be a good coach for the Rockets, because he was a very smart basketball player, and he was a guy that, was a really good passer, and he's got that basketball IQ. Yao Ming. I think Yao Ming would make a lot of sense. I know he's an executive right now of a Chinese team called the Shanghai Sharks, I believe. But I think Yao Ming would make a great head coach. I think that, with this franchise, when you think about the Rockets, Ben and Loro, you think about Yao Ming as one of the faces of that franchise. And I think that if Yao Ming was the head coach of the Rockets, I think it would make a lot of sense. He's got great basketball IQ. He can work well with bigs. You just put a lot of experienced coaches on his staff, and I think he can make it work. So I think Yao Ming should be the next head coach of the Houston Rockets. And as far as Detroit, I
said Nate McMillan, or I wouldn't mind Frank Vogel for that job.
Yeah, I probably lean towards Frank Vogel, just because I think Detroit, they've got young talent. I think they need a guy that can set the culture and help them improve on defense. So I would go Frank Vogel for Detroit.
Yeah, Frank Vogel needs another opportunity. I didn't like how the Lakers treated him. He's such a good coach, and I felt like that Frank Vogel was scapegoated by the Lakers front office. I didn't think it was his fault that time with the Lakers,
Well, how about Darvin Ham if he gets let go because the Lakers want to get Nick Nurse?
Well, we don't know.
He won a championship in Detroit.
Darvin Ham?
Yeah. If Nick Nurse becomes available and the Lakers decide to go get Nick Nurse because they wanted him last year.
We'll see. Ben, I'll go to you. Which was more shocking between Dwane Casey and Steven Silas?
I mean, both teams obviously were, two of the worst teams in basketball. I'd probably go with Casey. I'm not surprised about Silas. I think that, he was kind of coming to the end. He's a younger type coach, and I think that they need more of a head veteran type coach to kind of lead this young group of men, kind of more towards the right direction they want to be. Casey, obviously, I feel like he's been a good coach in his career. He's kind of ran its course, though. Kind of reminds me of a guy like Alvin Gentry, honestly. But I think he's still a really good basketball mind that I think if you still put him in the right, mindset, and still the franchise, I still think that he could still make his presence felt. My replacements, I'm shocked that Isaiah didn't say this one. For the Detroit Pistons, I'm going to go Ime Udoka. I think that Ime Udoka could potentially be a perfect coach for a team like the Pistons that need really big help on defense. Udoka is a guy specifically, I think, that will definitely find a team next season. I know that he obviously has gone through a lot of legal stuff and situations, but I think that when there's smoke, there's fire. And I think that Ime, as tough it was as it was for him to leave my team, I think that he'll probably deserve another chance. I think that he's kind of ran it, it's so crazy to me that he didn't even coach this year. Still wild. But I think that he's going to find a team next season. I think that the Pistons are a team to watch out for his services. I think Nick Nurse for the Rockets, I think, would be a very good fit. He's a championship level type coach, and I think he'd be a great overall fit there. And my wild hot, like I guess I don't want to say if it's a hot take, but how about one of the Van Gundys? Look at a guy like Stan Van Gundy or Jeff Van Gundy. If they're open to potentially being back into coaching, I wouldn't be shocked if one of those was able to, one of those guys could be able to help them, be able to kind of get back on track, because both of them have a very good track record of being in coaching, and we'll see if that potentially could be something that happens there. But I would probably say it's Casey, between the two, but yeah.
Anyways, I'll go to Isaiah here next, but we now move on to baseball. We'll start with the Rays defeating the Red Sox 9-7 to move 12-0 in the young season. But also there is trouble in Boston. After the Red Sox' third consecutive loss to the Rays, the mood in the Red Sox clubhouse was described by reporter John Moore like a morgue, as no one was talking and everyone was quiet and upset. I'll start with you, Ben, on this one. What is the mood like for the Boston Red Sox at the start of the season? And how disappointed are you that the Red Sox did get swept by the Tampa Rays?
Oh, man. The vibes are just not changing. And I think that my overall crazy take, I have actually a couple. I have quite a bit of stuff to say, but obviously I could be here all the next 3 hours to talk about my team if I really have to, because I'll be that way. But to be fair, this team specifically is a very similar team already to last year, and I'm not really liking the vibes of it specifically. With them specifically this offseason, going out and getting Heim Bloom's essential method, becoming a team like the Tampa Bay Rays, going to try to find cheap and asking to see if it could produce. The mindset I looked at, before actually coming on here, I was looking at from when Heim Bloom got brought in from 2020 on. He's given the Red Sox at least 3 fifth-place finishes in his tenure out of 4, and the fourth place one was in 2021 when the Red Sox made the ALCS. And part of it, I don't think was him. I just think the Red Sox completely overperformed expectations, and I think that it was a great run from us. But I think that definitely that was the case there, because Tampa Bay is obviously, they're a great team, right? And they're going to be a good team. They're a very annoying team, and I don't like playing them. Our division is extremely tough, so I get it. But I also don't like the fact that, obviously since 2018, the movement of obviously moving on from Mookie Betts, and then you move on from Xander Bogaerts. It feels like that the fan interest in once in a big, proud franchise that I love very much is starting to lose it. They're starting to lose patience in the field. And it might have been you, Isaiah, thinking that if Boston has another long season, that either Heim Bloom or Alex Cora could be fired. And I think specifically Heim Bloom should be more in the hot seat than anything than Alex Cora. I don't think Alex Cora has gotten a fair rep, because I think specifically Heim Bloom is still thinking that with his overall motto and thinking cheap and stuff like that, that it's going to work in a franchise like the Boston Red Sox. And I think he tried. I kept defending him. I said that maybe this guy might work. This guy might work. And it's hard to really do. It's really hard to kind of put things together. And it's basically like having a magic, hat and kind of picking things out of the hat and just hoping it fits. That's been the Boston Red Sox motto for the last couple of years. And it's not great for success at all. I'm been pretty upset with it. And people could say, it's April, it's a long season, and I get that, and I want things to change. They're 5-7. They have one more game tomorrow against Tampa Bay, but last season in April they had to go off to a better start. April last season they were way too far behind, and I don't think they're going to win the division by anything. The division's just so tough. You have the Yankees, you have the Jays, you have the Rays, you have the Orioles. Even the Orioles are getting much better. But I just want a competitive product. I mean, tonight even, you have Bobby Dahlbeck playing shortstop. That is not supposed to happen after Xander Bogaerts leaves. It's just not supposed to happen. And people are just, work with Yankee fans, tonight even. And, they're like, how is that even possible? And I'm like, good question. Like, I have Yankee fans that live near me, and they just honestly, some of them even feel bad at this point in time. It's a terrible situation to be a part of. And, I think that, myself going there this weekend, I think that, the vibes, I've been hearing that the vibes have been very, very different from years past. It's just like, it's just very tough. It really is. And I know that Isaiah's like, well, try being a naysayer, try doing this, but this is the Boston Red Sox, and it's not only the way that they've been playing players. It's the fact that they don't care. They're like Chaim Bloom ever since he's been there since 2020. The approach of paying guys, it's not the same like a Theo Epstein or a Dave Dombrowski that I'm kind of used to. So it's just extremely frustrating. And when you don't pay players, you get the product you deserve. And that's been the Boston Red Sox. It's just not the same type of team that I've been accustomed to watching. And you just told, Adam Duvall being hurt was massive because he was on an absolute tear, it looked like, from the start of the season. And being Story being out, was a big toll. And Chris Sale, he's coming off of Tommy John the last couple of seasons, and you're expecting this guy to be the ace. It's not going to happen. He got absolutely rocked again tonight. You have to be able to figure out just more consistency, a better roster overall construction. I'm tired of these rebuilds, bridge years, stuff like that. They have to start being able to becoming a better overall product. And, like I said, it's April. It's a long season. I hope things change. You can get hot, baseball season, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. Things can really change, but I'm just not seeing a lot of change. Kike Hernandez, I know, Lower, you love Kike. He's a free agent after this season. It might be best to cut ties with him. Justin Turner. Have him here for a couple of years. I don't know how much I would think he has left. Masataka Yoshida. I think he could be a decent player. It's just a lot of what ifs, and when you have a lot of that specifically for a team, it doesn't bode well. It doesn't bode well. You have to be able to have proven guys come in, and you have to have some depth as well, and they don't have either of that right now. So it's been a really tough situation. It's really hard for me to kind of describe right now. And obviously don't want to go more into depth about it because I feel like I'm going to have to be saying more of this throughout the season. So I don't want to become a broken record, unfortunately, about my Red Sox. But this is pretty much how I feel. And it's really tough to see. And Jordan, actually, the guy that had the report, I follow him on Twitter. He has a lot of good stuff. I think that he's been doing stuff over in Tampa Bay. He lives kind of in that area. So he's a really good guy overall. I haven't met him, but with him, obviously having that insight of, the guys have nothing to say. How could you not? It's just a really tough situation. And, the more it's going to be like this, the more it's going to start to fall in ownership. And, if Chaim Bloom doesn't move forward, I don't see how things change. I want to be hopeful, but I just don't see how things change as of right now. So it's been a really tough decision in a situation over in the city the team that I love. And it'll be really interesting to see how the vibes are this weekend on a big marathon weekend in Boston.
What about you, Isaiah? What's your thoughts on the? What's your thoughts so far on the Red Sox season and also that loss for the Boston Red Sox over the Tampa Bay Rays?
I got to agree with Ben. It's just it's different vibes with this team. It just feels like that this team knows that they're not going to be good this season, and that management is not trying to put a competitive product out there on the baseball field. And now you're seeing it in the locker room. Guys aren't talking, guys aren't having fun, guys are just going into the locker room. It's very sad. It's a very very moody locker room right now. I don't think the Rays or the Red Sox should have any shame in losing to the Rays. I mean, the Rays are the best team in baseball right now. They're 12-0. But I just think it has more to do with the fact that they know that Chaim Bloom, with his conservativeness, not being able to put a competitive product on the field, that you step onto the field every single day, that you have a chance to win a World Series championship. I just think that's what's bothering these Red Sox players right now. And, Ben, sadly, I don't know if, let's say you don't make the playoffs this season, and let's say you have a repeat of last year where, you finished either second to last or dead or last place in the AL East. I don't know if Alex Cora survives because I think that he hasn't been getting a fair shot, but there's going to be someone that needs to be scapegoated, and it just
Yeah.
seems like to me from the outside looking in that it seems like management adores the job that Kyle Bloom is doing because he's saving them money, and they're gonna fire Cora and they're gonna blame Cora because he's the coach. He's the guy that manages the product on the field. They're gonna blame him because they're not willing to part ways and admit that they were wrong about Bloom since they want to save money and go back to their penny pinching ways. So I just don't know if Cora is able to even survive this season, or even if he makes it through this season, if he's able to survive the offseason, just because I feel like the Red Sox ownership, after the lessons from Dombrowski, in which they were spending a ton and making a lot of trades and trading away their entire farm system, I don't know if the Red Sox ownership group, if they want to get off their cheap ways and their penny pinching ways and go back to being aggressive and fire Kyle Bloom. I just don't think they will do that. And if they, let's say, miss the playoffs, miss the wild card, if they have to finish in last place or even second to last place, they're going to have to scapegoat someone. And sadly, Loro and Ben, I think it's going to be Alex Cora.
You might be right. You might be right about that. So, anyways, now that being said, we now are going to talk about the Texas Rangers, as Corey Seager is out for the next 4 weeks with a hamstring strain. I think that's a huge loss for the Rangers. But you know what? Next man up. I know Simeon and Adolis can carry that lineup without Corey Seager, Isaiah.
This is a brutal blow for Texas. I mean, Corey Seager was playing some of the best baseball that he's been playing since he arrived in Texas. And I'm very impressed by Corey Seager. I mean, I've watched this guy play the last couple of weeks, and he hits the ball to all parts of the field. He's a guy you want to build your franchise around. And it sucks that, he got injured. I mean, the way that he got injured yesterday, he hit a double, and he just pulled up gimpy when he was going around first towards second, and it just sucks that he strained his hamstring running the bases. But he's been a difference maker for the Texas Rangers, and it sucks that he's going to be out the next month. It's a brutal blow for Texas. I'm trying to see Texas's schedule right now to see who they have for the next month. They have the Astros. That's not going to be fun. I think I told Ben and James this when I went on Kicking It with Cruz that, hey, you got to beat the Astros. You got to set that. You got to set that. You got to have a mindset that, hey, we want to be the hunted in this division. We want to be the top dog in this division. So you got to go in there and beat the top dogs and send a message to the Astros that, hey, we're coming. And then they got the Royals, they got the A's, they got the Reds, they got the Yankees afterwards, and then they got Arizona and the Angels until Seager is supposed to be back. They got a pretty easy schedule. I think they can manage it. With Seager's absence, as they don't really need him right now with this easy schedule that they have. I think they can stay afloat. But for me, I don't want to stay afloat. I want to get off to a big lead in the division against the Astros because the Astros are struggling right now. And this is when the Rangers need to take advantage when the Astros are struggling, and they're struggling right now. So it's a brutal blow for Texas. I hope that Josh Jung and the others step up. Don't forget Mitch Garver is also on the injured list, so that's another big brutal blow for Texas. But they have an easy schedule to be able to withstand it. I just hope that they're able to not only stay afloat but dominate, so that they can, have a good sized lead when the Astros, start to go back to being the Astros of old that we know and love.
What about you, Ben? What's your thoughts on Corey Seager out the next 4 weeks?
Another thing I wanted to say too before I got into Seager news, I just looked up the next couple of games for the Astros. Isaiah, they got they had the Rangers. The Astros have Texas, then they have Toronto, and then they have the Rays, and they have the Blue Jays coming up. So they have a very tough couple games coming up. So if Texas can take care of business, they could really make things happen at least kind of early on in the season. So that's obviously something to keep in mind. In terms of Corey Seager, this is obviously a massive loss. He's a big part to that early part in that lineup you have between him, Garcia, Nate Lowe also as well. He was really good last year too. So I think that this Texas team could probably stay afloat as long as their pitching could be able to be maintained. And I think specifically Bruce Bochy's done a really good job. I've kind of underestimated this Texas team so far, Isaiah. I know it's kind of early, but they've kind of impressed me a little bit more than I expected. I thought that this Texas team would be kind of similar last year, but I think that they might be even a little bit better this year. I think when you add one of the best pitchers in baseball, he stays healthy. I know Evaldi struggled tonight against the Royals, but it looks like he's been pretty good so far. John Gray, Martin Perez. So they have some guys in their pitching staff, but I think Corey Seager being out, they're gonna have to have other guys step up. But I do believe that between Simeon having a better year so far this year, you have Garcia and Lynn Lowe, and also Jonah Heim too. Jonah Heim, you obviously had a walk up the other day too. So they have some guys that I think they could be able to pick up the offense. In Corey Seager's absence, but obviously this is a big loss for the Rangers at the time being as of right now. So
Absolutely it is. But anyways, now Isaiah and I are going to now talk about our favorite teams' weekly reports. So I'll start with my Dodgers here. So the Dodgers, they just took 2 out of 3 from the San Francisco Giants after losing 3 out of 4 to Arizona, which everybody thought the Dodgers were done. I'm like, look, it's early, but you know what? The Dodgers getting this win was needed, and I do think that the Dodgers are they're on track. I mean, this team is this team is 7-6 right now, but you know what? Arizona is somewhat peskier this year. I mean, 8-5. Who would have thought that they would be this good? But at the same time, I do think that the Dodgers, I still think they rule the NL West. But is that a team to be worried about right now? The Dodgers were somewhat off to a slow start and then taking 2 out of 3 from SF. There's not a real concern about the Dodgers. A lot of people were panicking on the St. Louis Cardinals being off to a 5-7 start. It was a rough schedule, but you know what? I do think the St. Louis Cardinals are a team that I still think they're going to be finishing in either first or second place in the National League Central with Milwaukee. But also Philadelphia you got to be worried about them after that 4-8 start. But all in all, the Dodgers take on the Chicago Cubs this weekend for a 3-game series. Cody Bellinger comes back to face against his former team, and then the New York Mets play the Dodgers as well. But man, the New York Mets, when you talk about that team on paper, it's a team that is filled with stars. They have a great rotation. They have a great lineup with Alonso. So I think the Mets are going to challenge the Braves as it looks. I know it's early, but Isaiah has a lot of thoughts on his Philadelphia Phillies here. But I think that when they get Bryce Harper back, I do think that we'll see a significant improvement of the Phillies. Isaiah, the floor is yours on both the Phillies and the A's.
Well, let's start off with the A's. I don't think that anybody are surprised by their start. They're 3-9 right now. They look like absolute garbage out there. They can hit, but they can't pitch. I mean, their pitching is an absolute disaster. It is an abomination. And, I really don't know, Loro. I don't know who on this pitching staff you can really trust to give you a shutdown inning. Not 6 shutout innings, but 1 shutdown inning. I mean, this entire pitching staff right now, besides probably Jeurys Familia, although he gave up a run today, is garbage. And they don't have any competent pitchers in their starting rotation or their bullpen to be able to keep up the leads that their offense gives them. They have some quality hitters. They're able to put up runs. Tony Kemp, Laureano, Esteury Ruiz. I've been very impressed by him. He's a laser out there on the baseball field. Jace Peterson's been electric. Aledmus Diaz has been good. Jesus Aguilar has been pretty good. Kevin Smith, since he got called up, he's been good for the A's. Langoliers has serious pop in his bat. He can, whatever, he gets a good pitch to hit, he'll drive that baby out in a hurry. So their offense can hit, but it's the pitching. Ken Waldichuk finally gave him a quality start, but he's been inconsistent. JP Sears, he's been inconsistent. Shintaro Fujinami, I thought he was going to be a Cy Young candidate. He's looked like a disaster. I mean, the guy has good stuff. He's got great stuff that he could be, one of the best pitchers in baseball. But it's that one inning where he just cannot get his control down and get his control together, and then he panics and he ends up giving up like 4 to 5 runs in one inning, and that's basically all she wrote for Shintaro Fujinami. I think for Fujinami, if he can just get his control down, if he can get that crazy inning, if he can eliminate that, he's going to be one of the best pitchers in all of baseball, because he's got absolutely nasty stuff that MLB hitters just cannot handle. But it's all about getting his control right, and it's all about getting that crazy big inning and eliminating it. If he could do that, he could be one of the best pitchers in baseball. Kyle Muller had one great start on opening day, but that was about it. He's looked like trash the last couple of starts. The lineup can hit. The pitching just cannot produce. And for the A's, it's a reverse of last year where they could pitch, but they couldn't hit. This year they can hit, but they can't pitch. And when you're scoring like 8 runs, 7 runs, 11 runs, you can't lose those ball games when your offense is giving you that much production. And the A's right now 3-9. They've got the finale tomorrow against the Baltimore Orioles. Then after that, low roll, they play the Mets at the Coliseum against, I'm pretty sure it's against Scherzer and a couple of other their big studs like Kodai Senga, and I believe the last one, if I'm not mistaken, is gonna be Carrasco, I believe. But they got a tough schedule ahead. They got the Mets for 3 at the Coliseum, then they got the Cubs for 3, then they got the Texas Rangers. So I could see the A's, after this, 9-game stretch. I honestly could see the Oakland A's being 4-17 by the end of it, and their season will be basically done. But it's just not looking good for the A's. And if they want to turn it around, it's going to have to start with pitching, and they got to start pitching better, especially the starters. They have to start going deep into games, and their bullpen has to start putting up zeros on the board. As far as the Phillies, major disappointment. I don't know what else to say. I think Loro, for me, I'm starting to push the panic button on the Phils, because the Philadelphia Phillies, they've had a pretty easy schedule, against the Marlins, the Reds, the Rangers. They haven't played the hard part of their schedule, and they're right now 4-8 in their easy part of the schedule. Imagine the Phillies playing the harder part of their schedule. And with this team, let's see what they can do. I mean, they have the Reds coming up for 3 in Cincinnati, then the White Sox for 3, I believe, and then they play Colorado at Citizens Bank Park for 4, and then they play the Mariners and then Houston. They got their tough schedule coming up, so they gotta get their act together. It's a very frustrating and inconsistent team to watch. Some days when they pitch great, they can't hit like today. And then some days when they're really good, the lineup gives them a lot of runs, they can't pitch. So, the Phillies got to get, back to playing a total team game and a total team effort. And, their bullpen, Kimbrel looks like he's washed. Soto looks like, he is not good and he's overrated. I just don't know what's up with the Phillies. Rob Thompson last year was making great decision and perfect decision every time he stepped foot on the baseball field to make a pitching change or make a lineup change. This year, he looks like he's making every wrong decision. And Loro, you and I talked about this off the air. He's only got a 2-year contract. So the Phillies could easily move on from Rob Thompson. And if the Phillies win like 78 games and they have a losing record, I could see the Phillies definitely moving off of Rob Thompson because Dave Dombrowski didn't really give him that strong of an endorsement. He just said, we had to ride the hot hand. He only gave him a 2-year contract. So that's not that strong of an endorsement of Rob Thompson. So the Phils, they got to turn it around, but I'm starting to panic on the Phillies.
Now, that being said, Isaiah, to conclude the night, we're going to talk about some football here. The Falcons, they acquired the former number 3 overall pick, Jeff Okudah from the Lions in exchange for a 5th-round pick to help upshore their secondary. You talk about Jeff Okudah. He was a bust in the 2020 draft class with the Lions. I mean, he never knew how to cover big name receivers. And then the Falcons did this. That's not a good trade for them.
I don't really know what to think of this trade because he's got talent. I just feel like he's been not utilized well by the Detroit Lions. Last year, he had a pretty good year. He had 1 interception, pick 6 for a touchdown. He had 73 tackles. So he had a pretty good year, and, he wasn't injured, thankfully. But he's a guy I felt like in need of a fresh start. And I think that maybe he could turn it around in Atlanta. I don't know. But the Falcons needed some secondary help because their secondary has not been good the last couple of years. This is just the start. This better not be it for the Atlanta Falcons or else they're going to be toast. But the Falcons needed, they needed some upgrades at the secondary, and Okudah's got talent. He was the number 3 overall pick for a reason, and they only gave him a 5th-round pick to get him. So they didn't really pay that high of a price to get him. I think this is kind of like a low-risk, high-reward type of a move for the Atlanta Falcons, and hopefully he works out there in the ATL.
And then you talk about, we have a lot to say about this. The Aaron Rodgers saga, we thought it was going to end, but oh boy. The Packers and Jets haven't been communicating about an Aaron Rodgers trade for weeks, and it appears that both sides are dug in, according to ESPN Adam Schefter. Well, you know what, Isaiah? I think Aaron Rodgers will still be a New York Jet. But if the longer it goes on, the asking price of this trade is going to drop.
Loro, can they please get this trade done already? I mean, this is a national nightmare. And, it's been a nightmare for the last 2 years where everybody's talking about where is Aaron Rodgers going to go? Is he going to stay in Green Bay? Is he going to leave? And then finally we get the verdict that, Aaron Rodgers is going to play for the New York Jets. And now they're taking their stinking time making this trade. I just want this saga to be over because it's been going on for 2 years now. I just want an end to it. I just think that it's not just me, but I feel like Packer fans in general just want to move on to the Jordan Love era. They're tired of Aaron Rodgers' drama. They're tired of the controversy, and they're tired of every year being like, is he going to play? Is he going to retire? Is he going to go to a new team? Blah, blah, blah. I just think they want to move on to the Jordan Love era. And I think that at this point, if you're the Packers, just take whatever the Jets give you because you want to move on to the Jordan Love era. You have a quarterback that's in his prime. He's younger than Aaron Rodgers. He's a guy that, when he played, he looked like a stud. And I think that for the Packers, they got to stop being so stubborn and just take whatever the Jets are giving them and move on because you want to move on. The Jets want Aaron Rodgers. Your fan base wants to move on. Everybody wants to move on. And it's time to transition to the Jordan Love era. So I just want them to get this trade done and, just move on with the Jordan Love era. But Loro, I'll tell you this. I think the longer this goes, I won't be shocked if we have a surprise team that comes out of nowhere and, steals Aaron Rodgers from the Jets. And the team I'm talking about is San Francisco because there's been rumors out there that San Francisco's ready to pounce if, in fact, the Jets managed to fumble the Aaron Rodgers trade talks. And if they are really serious about it, if this is not just like a negotiating tactic, but if this is true, then the Jets should be very careful because if it's only like a 3rd-round pick and next year's first, the Niners can easily outbid the Jets if the Jets don't give up their first-round pick, obviously, but the Niners can easily outbid the Jets and get Aaron Rodgers, and New York would be stuck with Zach Wilson for another year, and that's not going to be a good look for their fan base, given that they booed Zach Wilson out of the building in one of their games in late December. You cannot go into next season with Zach Wilson, or else that will be a disaster of an offseason. It will be even worse than the Giants offseason when they failed to land Aaron Judge and Carlos Correa and Trey Turner, and instead of running it back with, the guys on the roster. You can't do that. You got to get Aaron Rodgers. You promised your fans Aaron Rodgers, and you cannot let him go somewhere else and end up being stuck with Zach Wilson and running it back with him. You just cannot. It's going to be a disaster all across the board for the New York Jets. So they got to get this done. They got to get this done now.
You're right, Isaiah. They definitely have to get this done. But according to Sports Illustrated, Albert Breer and NBC's Peter King, they said the Houston Texans are not a lock to draft a quarterback with the number 2 pick and could instead pass on a quarterback and get Will Anderson Jr. I'm kind of surprised about this, but knowing DeMeco Ryans, he is a defensive-minded head coach, and he knows that this Texans defense needs a lot of help, but he also knows that the Texans need a quarterback too. You're not going to go with Case Keenum as your starter.
Yeah, you're not. I'm very shocked by this report. This might be. I wish we were doing an NFL draft extravaganza this year, Loro, because if we were, we would get the same reaction. Like, what? Oh my God, that we got to the Jaguars drafting Trayvon Walker if the Texans actually passed up on a quarterback and drafted Will Anderson Jr. It would be a very, very shocking move if they did it, because you need that quarterback since you haven't had a top quarterback for a very, very long time. And I just think that for the Texans, whether it's Stroud or whether it's Young, I don't think you can get wrong on any of the players, the quarterbacks that you'll draft. But I understand why they could draft Will Anderson because, DeMeco Ryans needs his Nick Bosa for his defense, and Will Anderson is a prolific pass rusher, and he could definitely be that. But you really want to start off your tenure with a pass rusher and then wait till next year, or wait to see if Anthony Richardson drops, or wait till next year to try to get a Caleb Williams? I don't know. It would just be a weird way to build your team around.
I think it is, Isaiah, but I also think that we got to talk about the Patriots for a minute here. I'm at Bill Belichick saying there's been reports that Mac Jones could be out the door in New England. Do I believe those reports, Isaiah? I honestly don't, because Mac Jones, I think, is going to prove everybody wrong this year. I really think that Mac Jones is going to come in, and I really think that Mac Jones is going to tell people why he's going to be the starting quarterback for the New England Patriots. But the locker room is divided between Mac Jones, Bailey Zappi. I'm not really on that Bailey Zappi hype, I'm not on Zappi fever. I'm still on Mac Jones. But what is your thoughts on those rumors in New England about Mac Jones?
I'm glad that we have you on here because I've been wanting to hear your thoughts on it for the last couple of weeks. I'm not really that shocked about it because I just feel like after Mac Jones threw the temper tantrums that he did in the game, I just thought that turned off Belichick, because Belichick is a guy that needs his quarterbacks and his players to not show any emotion on the field or off the field. And, he's like a military drill sergeant. He's a guy that you can't show any emotion. You can't be you. You can't have fun. It's all about the job at hand. And I am not surprised. I think that turned off Belichick. And when you looked at what they were running last year, and I think we talked about this on Extra Point, Loro, is that when Bailey Zappi was the quarterback, the Patriots ran a whole different offense. They ran an offense that tailored to Bailey Zappi's skill set. They ran an offense that that was what they ran with Tom Brady, what they ran with Mac Jones in his rookie year. It was a very successful offense. And that was why Mac was complaining, because he was saying, why are you running the new offense with me when I'm struggling in that offense? But why are you running that old offense with Zappy when, that's the offense I had a lot of success in? And I think I will have success in that offense, if you run it with me. So that's why I think that Matt Patricia and Bill Belichick was purposely sabotaging the team, because it just makes no sense. It makes no sense for you running your old offense with Zappy, and he's successful there. But when it comes to Mac Jones, you have to force him to run that new offense, even though we see that he struggles in that offense. So I'm not really surprised at all. I think it goes back to the play calling, the choosing of the offense last year. When it comes to Zappy versus Jones, I think Belichick wants Zappy, but he can't do it because Robert Kraft wants Mac Jones. And that's why Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick are in this war right now over the quarterback Zappy versus Mac Jones. It will be very interesting to see what happens, because remember, Loro, Belichick, when asked about it, never promised that Mac Jones will be the starting quarterback. He said in his press conference that Zappy and Jones will compete. And I think that's what was very telling, because if Mac Jones was really your guy to be the starter, you would say, Mac Jones is my guy. He said the same thing. Tom Brady is my guy. But for Mac Jones, it was, Zappy and Mac Jones will compete for the starting quarterback. If he's really your guy, you got to say, Mac Jones is my guy, and end the debate right there. But he didn't, and it's going to be a very, very interesting offseason for this competition between Jones and Zappy, because I think deep down Belichick really wants Zappy, but he knows if he puts Zappy in and Zappy struggles and Belichick looks like an idiot, then I think Belichick's going to get fired, because I know Robert Kraft wants Mac Jones.
Yeah, I'm on Robert Kraft's side than Bill Belichick, because Robert Kraft is a big fan of Mac Jones. I know he is. I am too. Bill Belichick is just being a moron right now, which I'm not too pleased with. I want Mac Jones. He's my quarterback. That's what I would say if I were him. But Bill Belichick is just being too stubborn.
You said it right. Bill Belichick is being stubborn, and he might cost the team games. If he puts in Zappy, if he puts Zappy in because he wants Zappy, because he doesn't like Mac Jones' attitude, and they start losing, I could see Bill Belichick getting fired by Robert Kraft, just because Bill Belichick is sabotaging the team. I said that last year when they were running that different offense. It makes no sense.
I think Bill Belichick is a Hall of Fame coach. Don't get me wrong on that. Right. In the past years, since during the post Brady era, it has not been good.
No, it hasn't, and I think that Belichick needs to make the playoffs and have success, because if he doesn't in the next year or 2 years, then Robert Kraft's patience is getting lower and lower and lower by the minute.
Well, he is, but anyways, guys, that we're gonna get to some final thoughts here and announcements. This Friday, I will not be part of this show, because I have work on Friday. So kicking it with Cruz on Friday will be on Friday. I don't know what time, but anyways, Isaiah, tell Ben that I just made a new brand for a brand called Kicking It with Cruz. So tell him he can put his Boston sports thing on that new brand I made.
All right.
Just take a look at it. Take a look here. I'll show you right now what it looks like. It's blue right now, but at the same time, we're going to have to change that color, and I'm going to have to update the logo and all that. You can send me I'll put the new picture up there and all that he uses. So what is your final thoughts?
My final thoughts is it was a great show. Glad to have you back tonight, Loro. It's going to be fun. NBA playoffs start Saturday, play-in on Friday. We'll know the playoff matchups by Friday night. NBA draft is right around the corner. We're gonna do an NBA draft or NBA or NFL mock draft show probably sometime in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned for that. We'll have Batter Up either sometime, I think Sunday or Monday, depending on when our schedules are free. But yeah, we got a lot of stuff in the sports world coming up, and I can't wait for it. It's gonna be exciting, and let the playoffs commence because we're about to have the most exciting playoffs in the last 5 years.
Absolutely. For Isaiah Leong and Ben Kurse, I'm Loro. Have a great night, and we leave you with this.
But I said, if you gave me Mahomes, if you gave me Lamar Jackson with his great legs and Mahomes' great arm, or you give me Baker Mayfield, who would I want? I would want Baker Mayfield, and the reason why is because Baker Mayfield.
I really think that now this is the worst case scenario for the San Francisco 49ers is that they're going to have to cut ties with Jimmy Garoppolo if I were them. What? Oh my God! Whoa, man!
In any event, Kyle Gibson is definitely my NL Cy Young Award winner. Rock on, Giddy.
And even
Oh my!
No way! Oh my God!